Those were interesting times. I mean, it was Cold War.
I'm the advisor to President Nicolae Ceausescu. I was in charge with setting up hundreds of espionage operations in the West and the Middle East.
How familiar were you both with that period of time in history, with the Camp David negotiations, and how much research did you have to do to dive in your characters?
I knew about the subject, kind of what happened during the 70s. The regime had a hiccup in Romania, and I had photos of my parents and grandparents from that era, and finally make those photos 3D in my mind. It was really helpful, and I learned a lot from doing the documentation for this.
I've read the book that inspired this. It's called Red Horizons. When I was 15, I just found it around the house and I read it. And I was thinking, wow, people at the top lived a completely imperialist, capitalist Western life, and they were imposing prison upon us, this dungeon. So it was a huge shock at the time.
I didn't know anything. I mean, from the American perspective, obviously we had a lot of issues of our own and protests and I guess fuel crisis and so forth. There was a lot going on. But then even as a student when I was younger, we just didn't learn about this side of the world. There was a great opportunity to learn, to teach myself and learn as much as I needed to for the show.
Why did you decide to focus on the end of the collaboration between Godano and Ceausescu instead of, let's say, when they started working together, or when he discovered how the regime worked from the inside?
It was very interesting to focus on those very, very tense and life-changing moments.
We were both intrigued by the compact nature of trying to tell 1 week. Yeah, you have a whole different storytelling dynamic if you can compress it. The story is inspired by a true character, and we used sort of some of the facts of his actual defection. I think what we both wanted was to say true from the tone and the atmosphere to the time.
Do you think you can both fully understand and stand by your character's actions?
This is the juicy part of working on a character, because you need to understand the character's reasons, even if you don't agree with the character.
And tapping into Frank's psyche, I agree with everything he does. I mean, the ambition and the drive and sort of do whatever you have to do to get to where you want to go. That is a very American idea. And then even going behind the back of his superiors. As a black man in 1978, there is a chip on the shoulder of like, well, you don't like me anyway, so I'm just going to do this. And if it works out, great.
You played the most persistent character in getting Godano. How do you understand Carmen's motivations in the show?
I think Carmen is a ruthless professional. I think besides the fact that she's determined, I think this is what brought her to this rank at a very young age. She's a high-ranking officer in a mostly male-dominated world. There's a bit of like personal vendetta. I think she dislikes Godano just for this very simple reason that he does not play by the rules, and yet he keeps being ahead.
And what do you think audiences are still so fascinated by spy stories in general?
There are two things: the fact that they act in a secret world, in a secret environment that we don't have access to on a daily basis, and the sense of power, the power that they have through the information that they have, and the way they play with it, and the way they can manipulate people and change people's lives. That's also something that fascinates.
The duplicitous nature of spies. Secretly, deep down, wish maybe we have the capability to kind of lie and to lead a double life and to get to watch people doing that. I think people find that fascinating.
This clash between, the true nature and the job, that's what I think it's much more richer and interesting.
One of the things I really like about the show is the fact that your characters end up forming like this really nice partnership, even though they never fully trust one another.
It's like a cat and mouse game. It's like, we were talking with the director on set, and he said, you're like fire and ice. Victor is the product of the Eastern intelligence. Frank is the product of the Western intelligence. They have different ways of how they got there and how they built their career, but they're using the same tools to play the game.
It was a lot of fun to play with. Yeah, the mutual respect they have for one another, the fascination professionally, I guess, face to face with a very good spy, just by the nature of the job and who Frank is. It's still fascinating and sort of thrilling for him. He's living his very own spy thriller.
I mean, how do you feel about the gender roles in Spy Master?
Honestly, I think it's a really well-balanced show without trying to do anything. The women are strong, they are smart, all of them. They have their weaknesses, just like the men do. There are equivalents all over the place, and I find it beautiful.
Really, I mean, I really like the way they show Romania and the US relationships in a way that Romania is not just shown as this really bad place he wants to escape from, and the United States is not paradise.
From the Western audience point of view, they thought at that time that behind the wall is just the Soviet Union and all of the countries are listening to the Soviets, and that was it. But in those times, things were just a bit different. It's a whole other perspective and universe that is being shown on screen.
Is it taboo to bring up in Romania the Ceausescu regime and its wrongdoings, or it's something people have really come up to, people have settled with, it's accepted?
I don't think it's taboo at all. And the way we depicted them is very, 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 I mean, it's based on reality. I think people will look at them, okay, that's the way they were.
I think it's actually very accurate. I think a lot of things happened with Ceausescu throughout the years that kind of led him into a descending spiral of complete paranoia and stuff like that. I think he was completely broken away from anything that was happening anymore, and everyone else was just feeding into the personality cult that he was developing. It serves perfectly the purpose of saying, this is what we, the regular citizens, were not seeing. The games that high altitudes.
How do you think this portrait reflects the way we deal with authoritarian regimes today?
How's your country doing?
A bit better now, thank you for asking, but we do know quite a lot about authoritarian regimes ourselves.
Exactly, and you stood up, and I think people should always understand that they have an immense amount of power, but people have the power to change things. So bravo, Brazil.
Thank you so much. Pleasure talking to you, bro.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.